I just think as an entrepreneur is you have to just know in your bones that everything is figure outable and trust that everything is figure outable and trust that you can figure it out. And so whatever problem you're faced with, it's like, what's the solution or what's the course correct or what's the next thing? And then not get so attached because things ebb and flow. Things have seasons. Whatever business you have today is going to look different in 6 months, in a year. And that whole business, like our world is moving at breakneck speed right now, right? With technology and breakneck speed. Our
Yes.
generation is seeing the biggest changes every decade than any generation in history. And so, what works today for your life? And then, as soon as that starts to not work or not feel good or not be a fit for you, then find the next opportunity, find the next thing, and get creative.
Welcome to the From Spaghetti to Growth podcast. I'm your host, Seema Alexander, a business growth strategist and advisor and creator of the Unique Method. In each episode, I have unfiltered conversations with successful founders, CEOs, and experts where we delve into their business journeys of how they went from chaos to growth and everything in between. If you're an entrepreneur seeking inspiration, tips, and strategies to take your business to the next level and turn your spaghetti into growth, this is the podcast for you. Now let's start growing. Hey, Grow Tribe, I have some exciting news for you. I know if you're listening into this podcast, you are seeking strategies to grow your business to have your breakout years. Right now, the applications for the Disruptive CEO Business Growth Academy are open. www.disruptive.ceo/accelerator. Go to the website, apply, and become part of the Growth Tribe. I'm going to take you in a 10-week journey to change the way that you approach business, to get you clear on your unique positioning in the market and disrupt the status quo so that you can exponentially grow. This is the clarity that you've been seeking. I'm telling you, don't miss out on this opportunity right now. Go to www.disruptive.ceo/accelerator and apply today. Heidi is a serial entrepreneur who's built 4 internet marketing businesses with over 50% profit margins, sold 3 of them, including a 7-figure exit, and has appeared in magazines like Forbes and Self-Made Women. She's become known as the Optimizer because she's passionate about helping entrepreneurs optimize their business and life. She's now building her newest company, Alchemize Teams, designed to help small businesses build winning teams. Welcome to our next episode of From Spaghetti to Growth podcast. Today, I get to invite not only an amazing entrepreneur, but a friend to the stage with us here, Heidi Deco. Heidi and I, God, we met several years ago at a Savor the Success. I think it was a retreat or conference, which was this amazing conference put by Angela Gia Kim in New York. And when we sat down, I will never forget it. I said, "Hey, Heidi, what do you do?" And you go into this whole story about owning 4 businesses and doing all these amazing things in online marketing and otherwise, And it was like my first impression of you was like, man, who is this powerhouse lady and how do I get to know her? So I'm really excited because, a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space is what I call have entrepreneurial ADD. And in a lot of ways, that means it's like they have like an idea a minute and they want to do multiple things at once. And it's really hard to do that successfully, right? And so knowing who you are, knowing what you have done, I'm excited to unpack a little bit of that story of how that was possible for you and what that looked like and all the craziness in between. Hi, Heidi. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Seema. I am so grateful to be here.
Oh, so excited to have you. So, Heidi, the first question I always ask my guests is, what was that initial sort of driver of wanting to even start a business for you? Where did that come from?
I think I was just born an entrepreneur. I was doing businesses as like a 10-year-old. So I think it's just innate in me. Even in high school, people were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, an entrepreneur. And I didn't even know exactly what that was. My grandma was an entrepreneur though. So I had a bit of she didn't necessarily call herself that, but she was that. She owned multiple businesses. And so I had a bit of a framework. But yeah, I think I was just born with it.
Well, that's interesting. I've had a lot of males and females on this, but like a lot of the males have that story of like, hey, I started collecting baseball cards and doing this, whatever, at a young age or selling cookie, whatever. So, what was that for you actually? What were you doing at 10 years old?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things, making like bracelets and selling them and brokering like this. Like we made these like I basically made, I'm not crafty, but I made my friends make them and then I would sell them and like give them a cut of the like little like greeting cards and bracelets and that kind of thing.
Wow. Referral strategies, affiliate marketing when you were 10 and 11. That is dope, girl. I've never would have thunk it? No, but listen, I really want to get into your story, and more so, the early stages of all that of as a child. Where did that translate? Like, what? Give us a little bit of history on you, Heidi, and sort of how that translated into your first company, your first business, and let's go deep into that.
Yeah, I mean, my first real business was to help. I was basically a productivity and organizer. And so by day, I had gotten rid of, I was in like a good paying, kind of corporate job. And corporate, I was actually working for for another entrepreneur. So it wasn't like a corporate, but corporate type job. And I had been trying to get a business off the ground, but working like, 60 plus hours a week. It's pretty hard to do even when you're young and single. So I knew that I had to transition out. So I actually gave him a 2-year notice and was like, I am leaving in 2 years and I'm going to have a business. I don't know what yet, but this is my 2-year notice. And I would remind him like every 6 months because he owned like 11 companies. He was super dependent on me. And so I knew that I had to like give him the runway. I think he never believed it. I think he always thought that I would just kind of be with him and, grow with him. And then a few months came before the deadline that I gave him, and I was like, "Here's the deal. I took this kind of easy peasy sales job where I can work, not quite full time. I can kind of get it done in like 30, 35 hours a week if I'm really efficient. And then it's a little, it was a bit of an income drop, but it was like enough that I can cover all my bills. I can just batten hatches a bit, and then I can actually work on a side business." And so I did. I left, I took that gig and started just by night toiling away. And I was getting a productivity organization business off the ground where I'd help small business owners. So at that time, 10 centuries ago, this is going to age Seema and I a bit. Everybody was drowning in paper. I know today people are like, paper? What paper do you have in your life? Like nobody even owns a file. But
Mhm.
back then, we all had like file cabinets, like filled with paper. And we were just drowning in like home paperwork and business paperwork and like all the paperwork. And so I created something called the fast filing method where you could find and file any piece of paper in 30 seconds or less. So I would go and do my method. And then I started getting a lot of people asking, like from across the country, like, hey, how can I get a hold of your method without like flying you here? So then I created literally a CD because, that's how we did things. We had the printed book, like a binder and a CD that I just ship people. They would like know my fast filing method. And so,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
anyway,
yeah.
I got that
I'm
off the
gonna pause
ground.
you. Let's go back actually before, because I wanna get to you're working for a entrepreneur that had 11 businesses. I wanna start there because that journey in itself, being able to work with somebody who's been there and done that before, how did you do that? Was that something that you sought out to do to say, "You know what? I'm intrigued in this entrepreneurial world. I wanna work for somebody," or how did that occur?
It was kind of a weird, long story that we ended up together, but I was really grateful. Like, as soon as I saw what he was doing, I just was intrigued. I knew I would learn so much from him, which I did. I learned a ton because I
Mhm.
just was like the problem solver on all these different things, right? And so I was the keep him organized problem solver
Okay.
slash like general manager.
And then now let's get into this productivity business. Like, how did you even come up with the idea, the concept? I mean, you went right into like how it became international. I want to know about the spaghetti, Heidi. Like, come on,
Love
give me
it.
a little bit more here.
Well, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I was already, so in high school, actually, some of my friends' parents had hired me to like help organize like different areas of their home and different areas of their office. My best friend's mom, when she moved to offices, I did her whole filing system. And then she told all her friends about me. So I was just kind of like doing that as a side hustle. I wasn't even thinking of it as a side hustle. I didn't even understand that word back then, but it was just like my friends parents would like call me sometimes and be like, "Hey, do you want to make some money on Saturday? Come do this, thing." So
Thing.
that's what it was. And so then when I was putting together a business, somebody had just said to me, like you could actually turn this into a business. There's something called professional organizers. And I found the institute and got certified. And, so that's kind of how that came to be.
Okay, so somebody's listening in and they're like, how do you turn an organizing business into something that's substantial? Tell us how that journey happened. And then how did you become internationally known for something that it's a filing system, Heidi? So help me understand it.
Yeah, yeah. So I just started taking clients locally. So to get those clients, what I did was I thought, who are my ideal clients? And like, well, a lot of my ideal clients are people that work in corporate offices. So they have good paying corporate jobs so they can afford it because it's kind of a little bit of a frivolous expense, right? To bring in like a professional organizer. And there are people who are super busy and who need to maximize your productivity. So I literally drove around downtown Minneapolis. I was living in Minneapolis at the time, would park and go walk through all the buildings and look at the directories. So remember, we had the internet, but the internet was like not what it is today, right? Like we're talking like almost 20 years ago, right? This is like, it was just like life was, I know new people listening are like, I don't understand. We have the internet. So like life was very different back then. So I would just, write down in my notebook like the directory of all these businesses and I would cold call the HR department and say, "Hey, I want to come in and do a lunch hour workshop on how to increase product your employees can be more productive. I'll do it for free. It'd be great if you'd cater the lunch, but if not, tell people to bring a brown bag." So I just put together like a little signature talk. I bought Lisa Sasevich, who I think she's retired now, but back in the day she was big back in the day and she taught you how to make a signature talk. So I bought her program, wrote my signature talk, and I just started going to all these companies and doing these lunch hour workshops. And right away, I basically got almost a full clientele. And in addition, then I wanted to really bring it online because I just realized that driving around to all these clients' houses wasn't sustainable. I was getting burnt out. There was a limit on my income. And so I bought Allie Brown's online success blueprint, which again, she shipped me like 24 hours worth of DVDs in the mail in the big notebook. I watched all of them like 3 times. The notebook had like coffee stains and tear stains and highlights, and I just executed every single thing in there. And I just kept course correcting. Like as I would implement things, if it didn't work, course correct to the next thing. Didn't work, course correct to the next thing until I just started to get traction and grew an email list and grew and then what ended up being a whole, kind of online store of organizing products.
Okay, so you basically were one of the first internet marketers, like really in the space, you think in the productivity space? Is that or
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the first wave of them. I wasn't alone in there. There was others, but there was kind of a group of us that were in that first wave. Yeah. So this is back when, online marketing conferences were like all men. There was no bathroom lines for women. like
oh, wow. So there okay, so I just wanted to share a few things that I heard. I mean, you were being resourceful, right? In the beginning, yeah, we did not have the internet. Yes, we're older, but we're wiser, Heidi, we're wiser, okay? So, going into these office settings, finding the right kind of companies that fit into your quote unquote ideal market at that time, asking them to get a free workshop, right? That is resourceful, right? So at the end of the day, you're getting in from your ideal clients, and then the goal was to convert to a sale, which sounds like it became was it hard for you to get those meetings? Because like they didn't know you, right? So was that
Yeah,
difficult
it
to
was
do?
no, it's actually easier than you would think. Yeah, like, I mean, sometimes I would have to show up with like I would get the receptionist to tell me what like the favorite coffee is or treat of the HR person. So some I could get on the phone. A lot I would just show up with like their favorite coffee and then get them to talk to me. But once I had a conversation with them, like 80% would say yes. And then many of them would have me back. So I would go back like 2 or 3 times a year, which is great because not everybody in the company is going to come to your lunch or workshop. Like a portion of people come to this one, a portion next time. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
let's move it now to the internet space. So then you realize all these tools, you got it out on the market on the internet, you started creating packages that people could leverage not only, with you physically doing it, but you learned to scale through internet practices and became how did you become known internationally? Like where was that jump on that?
I just grew a big email list back when I say big, I mean, I think I maxed out that business at I don't know, this is a long time ago. I want to say 15, 18,000, which in today's terms is a small list, but back then that was considered, a large email list. And back then we had like, 56% open rates and things that are like unheard of today.
Got it. Okay, so resourceful is a core capability of yours. We know that. Now let's move on. So now, what did you do with the business, and what did you move on to?
Yes, I sold that business to a gal that had contacted me to, be an intern, and when she contacted me, I was already ramping it down. I was just kind of, like, burnt out, ready for the next thing, kind of your typical, entrepreneur, what's the next bright, shiny object? I feel like I've kinda been there, done that, I'm sick of this business. So and what had happened was a lot of these clients that I was working with had businesses, and they were like, "Gosh, we've been watching you kind of figure out all this online marketing. Can you show us how to do it?" So by night, I was becoming this like marketing consultant. And I was like, this is fun and it pays way more. I want to go into marketing consulting and I'm going to like shut down this business. And say this gal contacted me about being my intern. I was like, actually, I'm kind of done with the business. She's like, well, how about if I buy the business? And I was like, yeah, you want to buy my business? Like at the time, like I didn't, know that that was like a thing that you could like sell a business. So I ended up selling her the business. She still runs it today. She's grown it, significantly bigger, and she works with corporate contracts now, launched a big podcast that was like, I don't know, 17, 16, 17 years ago. And yeah,
Okay, so was that business under your like when it comes to the internet? A lot of times people brand things under their personal brand. So at that point, was that under your brand or not under your brand? Because then it's easier to
no,
sell.
not under my brand. Yeah, it was
No.
just, yeah.
It was just company. Okay. So now you move on, you get a clean exit. Now you're into marketing consulting. This is also a really cool thing to hear because you've created skill sets that other people want and they've seen you execute. So you have built-in credibility in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
right? So what did that look like? Was that truly like a true consulting where you're going out and fulfilling contracts? What did that look like?
Yeah, so it started out where I would just create like a plan and say, okay, these are all the things that you need to do. I would like do an analysis of their business, create a plan. And then the challenge that I ran into though was they would say, great, how do I execute this plan? Who's going to build the website and do the da 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 for me? And I would try to refer them people I had worked with, but it quite frankly didn't go that well because, like, well, A, some of them, had a baby and didn't work anymore. Others would get too many clients and start delivering bad service. And then that would look bad on me or, that kind of thing. And so then what was happening is I'd create these plans that would work for people, but they would like have no way of executing it. So I felt like, okay, I'm not really being of service here if they can't execute. So then I thought, all right, I need to just launch an agency, like a full service agency where we can execute all this. And so then I actually took a business loan for $30,000 and launched it. I've never even worked in an agency before. So I mean, it was kind of crazy, but it worked out. That was my least favorite business that I've ever owned. Yeah, an agency is not for the faint of heart, but I learned a ton in it. I had a big team in the Philippines that I ran. We built, great websites and stuff. So it was a good run, but it was definitely the least fun, most stressful business I've ever had.
Okay. How did you get a loan for a services based business? Because that's always a challenge.
Back then, you could get them. It's the banking industry has changed a lot, but back then, you could just do it a lot easier. We had like personal relationships with bankers, and just the banking world was different.
Okay, so this podcast is called From Spaghetti to Growth. So tell us a little bit about what was difficult in that process, right? Like you obviously went into it because people were asking you for it, so you knew there was a gap to be filled. But where was that sort of the learnings for you, and how long did you have it before you decided, you know what, this is now fitting for me? What did that look like? Because a lot of times people get into business society and they stay anyway. It's hard to just keep moving to
Yeah.
the next, right?
Especially if a business is profitable, so if you have a profitable business and you're making money, it can be hard to be like to walk away from it, even if it's really not a good fit for you and it's not the right lifestyle match. So having an agency is really challenging. I mean, so you've got this like whole big team of programmers and designers and all of this. They're doing some of the work is very subjective, in terms of like what's good design and what's bad design and what converts versus what doesn't convert. And then when you're working with the clients, and we were working with small businesses on a tight budget. So everything was very like templated and SOP'd, which that side of it I'm really good at. But so I could keep our prices low, but it was hard it just was a lot to manage kind of an ever flowing huge team and then to manage all the clients and the expectations and just agency work is like a grind. Anybody who has
Yeah.
ever owned an agency will attest to
Oh,
that.
I know. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so then how long did you have it, and then where did you go next? Like what was the next phase for
Yeah, I
Heidi?
had it Oh, 2 or 3 years. So back then, everybody had WordPress sites because we didn't have Wix, we didn't have Squarespace, but those things were just starting to come on the scene. And so I knew how, we were building these $1,000 WordPress sites, right? Like a couple thousand of them a year kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I knew that that was going to go away. Oh, and also I'd simplified the agency. So we just did websites. I like cut out everything else. And we ended up just doing these template websites. And then I could like kind of breathe again. But, I knew that that train was gonna come to an end because now these drag and drop, sites were coming out that small businesses could use, really efficiently. So I happened to kind of a long story short, I got connected with this company that certified practitioners in this modality that was kind of a cross between health and wellness and personal development. And they were struggling in that they would certify all these practitioners who then would have no idea how to get a client. So to get more people to sign up for their expensive certification was becoming more difficult because people would leave the certification and then never be able to find a client, right? And so they were looking to partner with somebody that could launch kind of a business in a box where it would be a website, a marketing plan thing. They would pay a monthly fee, so it'd be membership based. And I was like, I can do that. So yeah, then I launched the next company and went into exclusive contract with them. And I was still at the time running like the website
Agency.
company. So I was doing that. And then I had launched this contract, simultaneous.
Important lesson in the agency side first, then we're going to go into this, was when you decided to move from trying to do everything for everybody and moving just into website. So that's a really important thing for people to hear, is like eventually, in the beginning of business, you kind of throw spaghetti into the wall, you try to be everything to everybody, you try to do everything you can to bring in revenue in the door and to satisfy the customer. But you have to realize over time, what are you good at? Where can you like scale or grow your business? And how do you simplify that so something is sustainable and you get to be known for it? So it sounded like, did that happen organically for you through the process? Because you said you
Mhm.
could breathe again. And that's really important because you can easily
Yeah.
fall out of love with your business, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was totally out of love with my business. I was
Yeah.
completely fried, completely burned out, but I needed the income, right? I owned a house, I had a leased car, I was single, so I couldn't just like walk away. So the way that I did kind of a half walk away was just like said, we're not doing anything except template websites, this instead.
Yeah. Yeah, so make your life easier. Okay, so then you get into halftime, or I don't know if it's like your team is running that agency and you're getting into this side of this. It's internet marketing continues to come up for you clearly,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And this is in the wellness side. You could do it like almost probably in your sleep where you're like a marketing plan, a business, all of that, right? So then was that just a partnership of somebody who has a strong list and they're like, I need this as a secondary product for the execution, or did it turn into an actual business? How did that work?
No, it was a legit business. I went into an exclusive contract with them, built out a bunch of IP that I own the IP, but I had an exclusive contract with them. They were headquartered in Chicago. I was living in Minneapolis at the time. They would bring in groups to their Chicago headquarters, and then people would spend a month there learning the modality and getting certified. I would fly in with my team and I would pitch from stage. It was kind of a golden honey pot because this audience was so hot. Like they were paying all this money and spending all this time getting the certification. They knew they needed a client and I had a proven system. So I would close over 90% of the room. Our stick rate on average would be about 87%. We would move them into a monthly membership program. We'd have two tiers. I think it was $497 and $697 a month. That was basically a business in a box that gave them their website, their email hosting, their like how to, get clients, how to talk to clients, how to close clients, like the whole system, coaching support and whatnot. So that was actually a really great run. I had a ton of fun with it. We got, great results. The attrition was incredibly low. The only time people would cancel is if they like made a career change or something, right? Because the system worked. The problem with that was I was in an exclusive contract and that company that I had the contract with, like the CEO and the president and the CTO, and they all hated each other and fought like ferociously. And I successfully stayed out of their fights, but I knew that they would eventually burn the company down, and they did. And so while they were burning it down, I was like, okay, I have this IP, which I actually own and control. What can I do with it? Like, I'm going to have to do a pivot because this is a taking
It's
time bomb.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
started testing. Now fast forward, we're a lot earlier or later days, we had Facebook ads, those things existed now. And so I just started running Facebook campaigns. I'm like, all right, what if I targeted nutritionists? What if I targeted chiropractors? What if, everybody who could like benefit from the system? What I found was in a lot of these niches, there was already big players. They had internet fame, they had huge followings. And I'm like, so they're what I call a red ocean, so there's already a lot of like competition there. And like, I need a blue ocean, where I can go in. I knew that I didn't want to be any online personality influencer. I just wanted to kind of like be behind the scenes, do my work. I wanted to grow it, strictly through ads because I knew I could at the time. Ads were really affordable and you could like rock ads. So then I thought, all right, what if I got out of the wellness space? Because I'm really not finding anything that's converting in the wellness space. And I remembered back when I had my WordPress design agency, we had gotten a contract with the Global Institute of Travel Entrepreneurs to do template websites for their members. So I had built almost 500 websites for travel agents. And so
Mm.
I knew that space and one thing I learned when doing that was that nobody was teaching the agents marketing. We were building them great websites, but I was feeling almost a little bad about it because I'm like, they're not getting any traffic to this website because nobody's teaching them any marketing. So they just have a great website. But we were delivering on, what we were contracted to do. So I research, I'm like, they're a really small group, but it's a blue ocean. I mean, there's very few people in there really teaching the marketing, especially the luxury agents on how to get a client. And I'm like, my system works. It's like the same kind of client, high disposable income, looking for, that kind of a service. So I can flip this IP. So I just did a test with Facebook ads. And before we even built it, before I did the IP, I just did a minor amount of changes and just tested it. And like right away got traction. Got like, I think 36 members to sign up in a weekend and thought, I have an offer. Okay, like let's build that thing.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I wanna this is so good. It's so crazy. You're, like, going from one business to the next because you keep seeing gaps and you're testing things along the way, but I wanna okay, health and wellness, the things that stuck out to me a lot was the company you were with figured out or the actually looked for somebody like you because they found a gap. They had a big group of people that needed something that they didn't have a solution for, and if
They
your
actually
product
didn't look for me, and I think this is really good for your listeners. So what happened was, I'm gonna leave a lot of details out of the story just for brevity. Basically, I was in a room with a friend who is signing up to do this, and I just looked around and thought, none of these people know how to get a client. None of these people are business owners. They're all these practitioners that are wannabe practitioners that came out of, other fields and stuff. And I just sensed that like nobody, and I started talking to them and I'm like, they have no clue how they're going to get clients. So I literally just went and found the CEO on a coffee break and was like, I have an idea for you. And I had like written out on like, I think it was like a napkin actually, like a plan for her. And I was like, this is what these people need and she said, you know what? She said, I was just in a meeting telling the team that like we're running into problems getting people to sign up because our past cohorts are not getting clients. They're not having success. And this is a gap. And she's like, I couldn't figure out how to solve it. She's like, we were going to just put like $500,000 into building something in house. I'm like, don't do that. Let me do it.
give
I'll
it to me.
there. Yeah. She then didn't pay me 500,000, but we
Yeah,
worked out
yeah.
a lucrative plan for me, right? It was a
Sure.
commission based plan, but I was really happy with it. It was a great run for me. And so it saved her because I was just like, let me be your magic wand. And she's like, are you kidding? And I'm like, no. And so that's, what it ended up being. So you have to get out and pitch. You find the gap and then just go pitch yourself. I mean, I just like got on her in a coffee line and like got her to like sit down and talk to me while she drank her coffee and just like pitched her. Right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you know what you're good at and you see a gap, those are the opportunities that matter most. So I'm glad you corrected me that they weren't seeking you out. You actually went up to them and you made it happen in a very organic way on top of that. And a lot of times now you're having this conversation. She's like, holy shit, you're exactly who I need. Right. And that just sometimes happens in this beautiful way. How did you negotiate you in owning the IP, right? You're creating for their company. So what did that process have any kinks to it, or were they concerned, at all? Like, or how did that work for you?
No, the process actually went really smooth. I mean, because they knew I was in an exclusive contract, so I could use the back end of the IP, I could retool for something else, but the front end of the IP, obviously all their branding and like their specific messaging and everything, they had full control of. And then the back end of it, I could take and, use in other niches. So that was the contract. So we delineated the two. And I just did it because I was like, basically, this is actually IP that I've already built because I'd already been doing this for clients in my agency, right? And I just was doing a customized version for them. So I'm like, it's not fair that you would get control over my what was originally my IP. Just get control over the customized version that I'm creating for you.
Yeah. The other thing that came up for me when you were having that conversation is that you can't control what you can't control. So the conversations and the screaming sessions and whatever's happening at the higher level, you kind of knew that there was something about to come down. And a lot of times, I always say entrepreneurship, there's obviously lots of ups and downs. And when there are things out of your control, I remember being in a partnership and we were 2.5 years doing all this incredible work and the CEO got a divorce and everything just shut and hit the fan, and you're just like, wait a minute, what happened to all that work? But then, I had a proactive strategy moving forward. It's like, all right, this is what I'm going to do next. How do I leverage? And it sounds like being proactive, seeing that like, the reality of what's happening on the wall and not just hoping and praying something will be okay is really important. Right. And that's where I think a lot of your entrepreneurial skill sets came right back and you're like, "Nope."
Interestingly, the weekend that I did the beta launch on Facebook ads, we did just like I think I did a 3-day cart open, cart close kind of thing. My house was under construction. I was literally like filming video for my like dining room under construction. That next week, the CEO flew to me and was like, "We burned the company down. I want to get you on my side. We're going to do a legal battle," which I didn't get involved in any of that. But I was just like, "Oh my God, my launch worked." Like, I was like, "Thank you, whoever is like helping me." Cause like I actually had a proof of concept because like the whole thing fell apart like immediately. And I had a team. It wasn't just like my income. Like I could survive without an income for a while. I had a whole team and some of them, they were the primary or only breadwinner in their home. Like one of them
Ooh.
husband was a stay-at-home dad and stuff. So like these were jobs that I took very seriously and didn't want to just like lay everybody off in like a minute, right?
Yeah. That's the thing when you're scaling in whatever capacity, you have responsibilities for other people. So you have to also think quick on your feet. What I also liked about your pivot, Heidi, here is that you went back and said, all right, from my previous experience, obviously I'm a very good marketer. I understand internet marketing. Looking at your old clientele and the marketing agency side, you realize the trends of like 500 of those websites were travel agents. Then you did your research of saying, all right, this is a market. It might be a small market, but it's a red ocean. I mean, these are the ways that as entrepreneurs, as people listening in, you got to start to connect those dots, right? It's a lot about your experience, your conviction. Actually, this the conviction piece I'm curious about because you and I have chatted about this in the past. Because when I met you, you were doing marketing for travelagents.com, right? Like
Mhm.
that was part of your core business at the time, right?
Yeah.
And I asked you, because I love business growth, I love strategy. I work with a lot of industries. I'm like, how did you niche to that, to that group? And this is an interesting, even learning for me because I have this place where I'm like, not that I can support everybody, but the methodology that I created works for the industries that I support, right? In the service space. But there is something so strong with creating sustainability and going deep when you are very clear on your niche and have sub niches, which really
Mhm.
that was it. So can we maybe talk about that? Like, so you get into like, all right, travel agency marketplace. And at that time, was all the internet kayaks and all that stuff around? Like, were you filling, what was the gap you were filling?
Yeah, so these luxury travel agents just needed because they were a living wage business. So they can't hire an agency. What they need is to know grassroots guerrilla marketing strategies to get in front of ideal clients, luxury clients with the right message and the right call to action and get them to be their client, right? And they just had no clue how to do that, right? Because a lot of them came out of like corporate jobs, they were former accountants or whatever. And so like marketing, getting clients is completely new to them. And so, my program would do that for them, just like it did with a wellness practitioner. It's the same kind of client, a luxury travel based client and somebody getting kind of a luxury experience, wellness experience are basically the same client. And it's similar marketing plan. And so, yeah, so I just flipped the IP over and targeted them. We created a monthly membership program. It was a lower price program. We took a lot of pieces out of it and made it more DIY and less done for you, like the wellness side, which I was actually excited about because I wanted to have it run a company that was more, DIY, providing more education and less actual services. So I built that one a little bit differently.
So let's get into the membership model, reoccurring revenue for information entrepreneurs, right? That obviously is something that many people would like, but don't know how to curate and create the value and have the retention. So, how do you make a membership model sticky?
Yeah. So you need to be delivering immense value on a regular basis. That's actually so A, you need to get them a quick win so that they get over that initial, right? So you need to get like, and my goal is always to get them three quick wins. So what's three fastest wins we can get them so they feel like they have traction and they're like, they start believing in the system and then they commit more to the system. And then we need to continue to get them wins so that they just become like addicted to it. 'Cause they're like, I know that with this system, I will continue to get the results that I'm looking for.
Okay. And in your system, did you have like a lot of these memberships or programs? They have a one time launch type of thing. Was your program ongoing? And if it was ongoing, how did if you're working on a system, how did you make that where it doesn't matter when they're coming in, they're still adding value or they're coming back to the beginning? How does that work?
Yeah, the whole program's on Evergreen. So they come in anytime on Evergreen and we do like launches or did. I've sold this company since, but we did, launches through three big launches throughout the year, like a big challenge with a launch, but we had it open for the most part on Evergreen, shut it down just a couple times a year while we would like freshen things up and whatnot. And so they would come in and we just had, they would go through their orientation. They would go, we just had everything laid out. And then of course we have monthly like roundtables on Zoom and monthly live coaching calls and whatnot that they can plug into. But we really
Hmm.
set it up so that everybody can go at their own pace. They can plug in and get support as they need it, as they're implementing. And then, of course, we bring in guest experts with new updated things. The thing about marketing is it's not a one and done. It's like working out. You can't just get into the best shape of your life and be like, never got to work out again. Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. So marketing is the same thing. So it is the kind of product that just lends itself well to a membership program because it always is changing. You always have to be, doing it.
I know you recently sold that recently, or maybe,
It was
yeah,
the end of 2021. Yeah.
under 2021.
Mhm.
Can you talk to me, like, up to this point? Like, give me something vulnerable, Heidi. Like, where was it hard? Where was it like, I know you, and I know you're such a smart human being, and you're very good at operations, but entrepreneurship is not always easy, right?
No.
So, like,
Yeah.
I what
Well,
is
all of this was hard. So let me just be clear with the audience. Seem and I having this, sexy little conversation sounds like, oh, you did this, and then you did this, and then you did this. And, what we're leaving out was like, there were, sleepless nights and tears and stress and like all of that in all of those things, right? It wasn't just the thing though that is natural to me and that I just think as an entrepreneur is you have to just know in your bones that everything is figure outable and trust that everything is figure outable and trust that you can figure it out. And so, whatever problem you're faced with, it's like, what's the solution or what's the course correct or what's the next thing? And then not get so attached because things ebb and flow, things have seasons. Whatever business you have today is going to look different in 6 months, in a year. And that whole business, like our world is moving at breakneck speed right now, right? With technology and I mean, breakneck speed. Our generation
Yes.
is seeing the biggest changes every decade than any generation in history. And so, like I had some consultant the other day say to me, make a 25-year plan. I was like, 25 years? We have no idea what this planet's going to look like in 25 years. Like,
No.
not even the foggiest clue. And so don't make a 25-year plan. What works today for your life? And then as soon as that starts to not work or not feel good or not be a fit for you, then find the next opportunity, find the next thing and get creative. I'll fill in a couple of gaps that we kind of glossed over. So just because I think this will be helpful for a listener
Yeah,
as you're
please.
it's correcting. So for
Yeah.
example, when I had the contract with the wellness practitioners on the side, I was consulting clients. I was just doing marketing consulting with clients, right? One of the clients I was consulting with owned a wellness company and wanted to start certifying practitioners. So when the company that I had a contract with ended and I was launching the travel company, I went to him and said, my program would actually fit perfectly into your certification because it will teach them how to do it. Why don't you buy my IP? You can't have exclusive rights because I'm going to launch it in the travel space, but I won't launch it in the wellness space. I had already tested the wellness space. I knew I was going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So I was happy signing away those rights. And so he gave me and here's another thing. My good friend, Brian Kurtz, I got to do a shout out for good Brian Kurtz. He originally was going to pay me $30,000 for that IP. And then he got a little skittish and he's like, I would much rather work on commission because I don't know if the certification program is going to work out. And I was like, all right, something better than nothing. And actually, and so I met with my friend Brian, who's really good at brokering deals. And Brian's like, I think you should do the commission deal. You've got nothing to lose. And he helped me structure it. So I ended up making $286,000 on that IP sale that I was going to take $30,000 for because I was willing to take commission. Now, with that, the deal wasn't 100% apples to apples. So this is an important note here. So with the $30,000 deal, I was going to just turn over or do some modifications to the IP and then turn it over and be done. With the new commission contract, I would do the modifications, turn over the IP, and then I would do consulting 2 to 4 hours a month for 2 years. So I did do 2 to 4 hours a month for 2 years of consulting, but do the math on that. I made like, I don't know,
It's
2 grand an
no.
hour or something like that totally worked.
I
That
mean,
made sense for me.
I mean, if anybody's selling a company, normally they ask the founder to be there a year or two.
Right.
It's part of the process and it's part of continuity. And honestly, that's part of your brand reputation, right? You want to make
Mhm.
sure that things get implemented the right way. Listen, I know you've done a lot of education. And I think this is also important for entrepreneurs to know because when you and I first chat, I feel like you were going to a lot of online marketing conferences and really building not only knowledge, but relationships. Can you speak to that? Because I think this is such an important thing. If you're an entrepreneur listening in, that amount of investment and commitment that you have for yourself, for your brain, right? For how you're pouring into yourself so that you can accomplish the things that you want to are important. But Heidi, can you share your experiences there?
Yeah, I mean, I've invested well into 6 figures in conferences, coaches, training, courses, programs, training programs, all of that. And it's been critical to my success. And not all of them been great. Some of them I've gotten and they've been total duds. And then others were game changers for me. There'll be a program that I spent 10 grand on and got nothing. And then one that I spent 1,500 on and then made hundreds of thousands of dollars from the strategy that I, learned. So like you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but you have to be committed to your constant like evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now you sold the marketing of your travel agent's business. What next? What happened next?
Yeah. So I took all of 2022 off. So at the end of Q4 of 2021, I actually left my marriage and sold my business, moved to a new city. And then come the first of the year, I was mentally, emotionally, and physically totally exhausted. My buyer was an SBA buyer. He got an SBA loan, which for those of you unfamiliar with that process, it
Mhm.
will just drain all of the life force out of you. But SBA money is really good money in the sense that it's very good terms. And so I didn't fault him for that. I would have done the same if I was in his position. But then, COVID, of course, made SBA go from a shit show to like a total dumpster fire. So I was, selling a business in the middle of the dumpster fire. So that was extremely challenging, plus going through a divorce, plus moving. It was a lot. So January hit and I was like, sabbatical. I'm officially on sabbatical until further notice. So 2022 is very much a healing, happiness year, just finding myself again. And then towards the end of 2022, one of my good girlfriends and I were starting to jam. And I was like, gosh, I have this idea. So the biggest problem in every business I have ever had is team, building a winning team. Team issues are complex, challenging, finding the right people when you need them. And for small business, it's exceptionally hard because you don't have these big budgets of corporate and you can't have overlap and you don't even actually know what you need because your business is like changing every month and growing in different ways. And so it's really, really hard to solve the team. And the team is what holds you back the most. It's the thing that costs the most amount of money. It keeps your profit margins the least. It's just the challenge for small business. And so I started saying, what if we created a solution for this? Like I knew that over the years in the different businesses, I'd worked out a lot of systems and a lot of hacks. And I certainly didn't have it all 100% dialed in and figured out, but I'd figured out a lot. It had gotten dramatically better at it and I was able to keep my profit margins. Most of my businesses were 50% plus profit margin. I would work with a lot of overseas people. So I'm giving life-changing income to our brothers and sisters across the planet. And then of course have, some local talent as well. And a lot of my friends would come to me. It was like the new thing people would come to me for and consult with me is like, how are you figuring out your
Got
teams? And I
you.
would share my templates and my systems and my strategies and like all of that for building a winning team. And my girlfriend has a deep HR background. She's been working in recruiting for her whole career. And so we started jamming about it and just kind of came up with a business idea. And then in December of 2022, we rolled up our sleeves. We started actually working on it. We are officially launching March 21st of 2023. So I think about the time this really gets released,
Hmm.
this podcast episode.
Yes.
And so we're really excited. This is basically a finding, vetting, hiring, onboarding solution for small business that's incredibly affordable, very systematized. We're launching it as a system with coaching support. Once we have it all worked out, we're going to just massively over deliver to this first cohort of clients and just roll up our sleeves and make sure that all their problems are solved and really understand all their needs and create every template and every resource that they need to really solve their problem. Once we do that, we're actually going to turn it into a SaaS, a software, so that businesses have this software that's highly affordable, that's an incredibly organized dashboard that automates 70% of it for you. So, I mean, you have to show up and do the interview and a few things, but other than that, you've got this whole automated system where you constantly have new talent coming into your talent leads coming into your business that are being automatically vetted. And then you go through this very succinct, well laid out interview process that we walk you through and how to assess them and how to make the job offer. And it's all built into a dashboard, including the onboarding.
Oh, wow. Listen, like that is one of the biggest challenges there is. I mean, how many entrepreneurs I talk to every day, and that seems to always come up, right? Especially when they're in growth and scale from that first hire, which is the most critical. But then what does the rest look like? But it's
Yeah.
not just a hiring process. Are you guys going to be focused on retention and engagement
Yes.
going forward?
Yep. So you're going to be set up with scorecards, and then the person you're hiring right from the get go understands that you've got a scorecard system and this is what it is. They score you, you score them because you want this to be a really good working relationship. And so all of that is built in. So it's really feels good. It's not like you're waiting till there's a problem with an employee and then being like, okay, now I need a process for either getting them to step up or getting them to go away. Like that's too late. We need to do that in the beginning of the relationship so that you, within the first 30 days are, if it's a bad hire, if you just made a mistake, then we're hopefully sussing that out and getting rid of them quickly. And because of the system, you already have a pool of additional candidates there. That's another big problem is with small business. By the time they realize that they need somebody, they needed them like a week ago. And then they do a really bad job of putting out a job ad post. They put it in two places like LinkedIn and
Yeah.
Indeed, right? When there's like a plethora of other places, many of which are free. And so they get very few candidates. And then now weeks have gone by. And now at this point, it's like anybody that's breathing and has a pulse, they're ready to make a job
Yeah.
offer to you because they're so desperate, right?
100%. I
Mm.
mean, I think you said it best, right? Hiring takes longer, fire quick, right? That's always
Mhm.
the big process. Your process is
Or
going to help them alleviate a lot of that mess, but also be human in that process. I mean, when
exactly.
people think technology and hiring, that's also something that of a concern, but I'm assuming there is a human element of actually getting to know people through that process.
Very much so. Yeah. And you're going to put like through. So for small business, there's about 13 roles that every small business has or will have. So it's like, this is the process for each of them. The interview questions for each, how to assess, the tests that you should put each of these people through, how to assess, the onboarding for like all of that. Yeah. For each role.
So, what's the one big piece of advice that you would have from anybody listening who has a team to keep them sort of engaged and, doing a lot of the work that you ask them to do? I don't know what's the advice you would give them since this is that focus now for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is having the right people in the right role. And you may have some people that are fantastic and maybe you can rework their role because even if you have the right people in the wrong role, there's no magic pill that's going to make that work. Right. And so you really need the right people in the right role. And sometimes you have the right people, but you just don't have the right role for them. And so you need to bless each other and move on and you need to hire the roles that you have. So step one, the biggest thing is have the right people in the right roles with the right scorecards in that.
Yeah. The other thing I did not want to gloss over is life happened for you not too long ago, right? And I think it's really important. I always tell people it's like people don't see the chaos that's actually happening in the background, and everybody has a lot going on, right?
Yeah.
If you were in my household, you'd see a 90-year-old father in law walking with this like physical therapist and, crazy kids. And there's a lot that goes into panic attacks. You name it, there are things, but you went through a lot of real things. And so, how did you bring that mindset back, right? Because it's also, you're not a corporate, you don't have that corporate like cushion, or obviously you sold businesses, so you have something to, help support you through this process. But how did you bring yourself back to being you, Heidi?
Yeah, the time off was critical. I mean, our society definitely needs to make a change. Like, I fortunately had enough privilege and resources to take a break. I mean, and I don't have children. For the, single moms out there that not only don't have those resources but have kids, like, this is why we have a mental health crisis, is people aren't able to take that. I absolutely needed that entire year off. And yeah, 2020 and 2021 were arguably two of probably the hardest years of my adult life. And then Q4 of 2021 was pretty crazy. And yeah, the divorce was pretty challenging. I had a mother-in-law that, lived with me and was in depression, and very challenging divorce negotiations. And then, selling my company and going through the SBA loan process. The company I had was in the travel industry. We were in a global pandemic. I was pulling rabbits out of my hat to keep our numbers on track, which I was doing successfully. Meanwhile, my competitors were going out of business and, and then moving to a new city. And like, it was a full on. And to answer your question about mindset, like, I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I knew that if I just stayed the course, that like the business hopefully would, look like the sale would eventually go through. I did prioritize my mental health. So instead of going to court with my ex, I just chose to give him a substantial chunk of my money, my like very hard earned money. Because when I just sat down to look, I thought I can either be done and make a clean break, or I can spend a year in a bloodbath of a court battle, which I'll ultimately win. But like, is that worth it to me? Or I can have a year of just healing and happiness and be completely done. And so, although at the time my parents were like, WTF, like, you cannot walk away from that amount of money. Like, what are you doing? Like, I am so glad I chose myself and my mental health. My parents have since changed, and they just watched me go from just completely depleted and spent to now probably the happiest I've ever been, and healthy and fulfilled and just in a totally new place. And so they're like, there's no amount of money that was worth it. Right. And so just signing off and trusting that like I will make a lot more money. I've made money before. I will make money again. I have enough to live to fight another day. And just, I believe in karma, and signing that. And so there are a time to cut your losses. And you might not be cutting your losses in divorce. Maybe you're cutting your losses with a business partnership gone bad, or even a business that you solely own that it's not sellable and you just need to shut it down and walk away and lose that income and just, troubleshoot until, or, take some consulting gigs or wait tables or whatever you have to do until the next thing comes. And so what I will say is your mental health is worth it. Your mental health needs to be number one, your mental and physical health. And so take care of yourself. You are the golden goose that nothing can replace. If you take care of the golden goose will drop more golden eggs. We live in an abundant world with abundant resources and abundant opportunities. Take care of yourself now. And yeah, it took a minute for me to get my mind around like just burning through a lot of savings last year, because I didn't have any income for the first time since I was like 14 years old, And so, and I was like traveling and I was going on, bougie mushroom journeys and hiring the best therapists and doing all the things. Right. And I just was like, my best friend, actually kudos to her because she was the one, because I was like, oh, I should take consulting clients, like, da, da, da. And she's like, this is why you have savings. Like, take care of yourself. You'll make more money. Like, just let go and take care of yourself. And also remember, I had no idea. I didn't have an idea for a business. I didn't know what I would do again. I was just now like off in the ether, like just spending money and had no, idea, and also just my brain wasn't even like fully functional because I was so depleted that I had some moments where I'm like, is my brain gonna turn back on eventually? Because I will run out of money eventually. But I just trusted that it would. And and then it did. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I think the word alignment is huge, and as you're building a business and life, and just, without sort of feeling authentic to who you are and what that looks like and how you feel every day, you're not going to be at your best self. You're not going to be able to serve the way that you know that you can, and a lot of people listening in, they have big aspirations and big dreams, right? And for you, for someone who has built and sold and really been successful in their life to say, you know what, I need to take time for me right now, rejuvenate that, and it will come. I mean, kudos to you, Heidi, because, that's a really important message. Because as entrepreneurs, I feel like we're always on it. Like, there's a idea a minute. I've recently told somebody, like, I wake up at 3:33 every morning because I have major downloads, and they're like, but Seema, you need to put your sleep first. But I'm like, I have the best creative ideas. But then I realized, and they're like, but if you don't have your health first, like, what are you going to like that? Like, think about the not even long term, it could be potentially short term, right?
Mhm.
We're not. So, the last question I have for you is if someone's going through the spaghetti in their business right now, what advice would you give them, Heidi?
Get a good, coach or consultant. I wish I would have done that way earlier on that can guide you through. I mean, somebody who has done what you want to do or something very closely related, they have a proven track record. Be cautious, right? Make sure that you're hiring somebody that can actually like support you. And so vet them well, but get support. Hire a consultant, get a SEMA on your team who's brilliant, who has been there, who has thrown spaghetti at a lot of walls and who understands the ins and the outs, they will dramatically shortcut your success. That was the number one biggest mistake that I made was not investing in that level of support early on. It would have catapulted me.
Oh, well, I appreciate the shout out, but in general, you're right. I mean, I think the one thing that you said there, out of everything, you said a lot of great things, but somebody who's been there and done that, right? Because there are a lot of people out there that you can easily hire, and this is where people get burnt. And, they say they've done it, but they haven't. And you have to do that vetting process. So, such an important tip. Listen, Heidi, thank you so much for being on this podcast and sharing your incredible journey. Like, this is the fun part for me is you never know where people come from and where their conviction comes from. And you've been able to share, from the early days of selling friendship bracelets and understanding referral and affiliate strategies when you were a kid to every business, having and building strengths and then looking at things that are actually like, this is not what I want to be doing, but you've just built off of the skills, the education, found that blue ocean in everything that you do. And I wish you so much luck with this new endeavor. I will be one of your champions for sure. It's a huge gap to fill. Again, thank you so much for being on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hello, S the G Tribe, aka Growth Tribe. As an entrepreneur, I know time is currency, and I don't take it lightly that you listen into today's episode of the From Spaghetti to Growth podcast. I hope it added value, and I'm truly honored to be part of your entrepreneurial journey. Be sure to head to disruptive.ceo and the soon to be coming SeemaAlexander.com to grab today's show notes and free resources to uncover opportunities to turn your unique spaghetti into growth. If you found value in today's episode, please rate, comment, and subscribe on your podcast platform and keep listening. Look forward to seeing you on our next episode.